December 1980. In the middle of the night, at two adjacent NATO air bases in rural Suffolk, England, uniformed security personnel left the warmth of their barracks and walked into Rendlesham Forest. What they reported, lights in the trees, a triangular metallic object, glowing phenomena above the tree line, was not filed away as a prank or a drill. It became, in documents and testimony, an incident that would be debated for decades. The Rendlesham Forest case, 1980. The first official trace we hold today is a memorandum written by Lieutenant Colonel Charles Halt, then Deputy Base Commander at RAF Bentwaters, dated January 13, 1981, and addressed to the UK Ministry of Defence. In it, Halt describes events witnessed by US Air Force personnel in the early hours of December 27th and again on December 28, 1980. That memo and an audio recording Halt made on the night of December 28th form the backbone of the documented record. Service members on patrol observed unexplained lights close to the forest's edge. They investigated, recorded instrument readings, and reported what they had seen to Base Command and to UK defense authorities. Hidden in those records are details that give the event its enduring mystery. On the night of December 26 to 27, witnesses including Senior NCO Jim Peniston and Airman First Class John Burrows reported lights descending into the trees near the perimeter fence of RAF Woodbridge and allegedly a metallic object in the forest. Security patrols responded, and in the hours that followed, different personnel described a set of glowing lights, white, blue, red, apparently moving among the trees and then into the sky. The Bentwaters security logs, witness statements recorded by base personnel, and the Halt memo corroborate that members of the 81st Security Police Squadron were involved and that higher command was notified. On December 28th, Lieutenant Colonel Halt himself led a small patrol into the forest. He recorded the patrol on a portable tape recorder. That tape, later released by the US government under public disclosure, captures Halt's contemporaneous description of the scene. Lights exhibiting unusual behavior, impressions left on the ground, and instrument readings taken during the check. Also included in the files are internal Bentwaters communications and notes exchanged with RAF Woodbridge and the Ministry of Defence. Those Ministry of Defence files, released and catalogued decades later, show the issue was taken seriously enough to be reported through official channels, even as the UK's defence establishment ultimately determined there was no threat to national security. As the investigation escalated in the days after the sightings, three facts stand out in the record. First, multiple uniformed witnesses reported the same sequence of events independently. Initial lights seen over the forest, an inspection that found physical disturbance in the woods, and renewed sightings on the night of the 28th. Second, an officer in command, Halt, formally documented the incident and recorded a first-hand account. That memo and audio are signed pieces of official evidence. Third, the UK Ministry of Defence and the US Air Force created paper trails. Security logs, emails, and later FOIA releases show internal communication about the event and the ultimate decision not to escalate. But the record is not seamless. The most significant documented contradictions and unresolved elements are also why the case remains controversial. The Ministry of Defence files, while acknowledging reports and preserving correspondence, state explicitly that the incident posed no defense significance and that there was no corroborating evidence of an actual aircraft or a clear security breach. Radar records and air traffic control confirmations that would normally corroborate an anomalous aerial object are absent from the released files. In the years since, researchers have noted the lack of contemporaneous radar data in UK files and the absence of a publicly released contemporaneous US radar log for the region, a gap that remains a central unresolved question in the official record. The most prominent revelation that emerged from the Rendlesham files is not a smoking gun, but an officer's voice on a tape, speaking about something he could not explain. Halt's memo and recording acknowledge observations of lights demonstrating unconventional behavior. They report measurements taken by handheld radiation instruments near the base of a tree and note physical disturbances in the undergrowth. Those entries transformed the story from a late-night prank into an incident that left traceable claims and prompted formal reporting chains between an American NATO base and the British Ministry of Defense. For skeptics, the documents simultaneously show why officials chose not to pursue a public military response. There was no clear hostile act, no immediate threat, and no definitive proof of an aircraft. For advocates, the documents are proof that credible military personnel saw something inexplicable and reported it in written form. Another major element of the case is the way witness accounts evolved and multiplied over time. In the immediate aftermath, the reports were relatively concise. Lights at the forest edge, security patrols investigated, higher-ups were notified. In subsequent years, several witnesses and researchers added layers of detail. Jim Peniston later described a close physical encounter with a structured craft and claimed to have made notes and sketches at the time. In later interviews, he reported an interaction with a surface that left an impression in his mind and a memory he said he recorded. Those later claims are documented as testimony in books, interviews, and media appearances, not as contemporaneous official findings. Researchers and official reviewers distinguish between what was filed in 1980-81 and those later recollections. The latter are explicitly presented by the participants as personal testimony and have been debated within both the UFO research community and among skeptics. Public reaction followed familiar contours. Press coverage in the UK and abroad picked up the story in the years after the event, and the Rendlesham Forest incident entered the public imagination as Britain's Roswell. Military representatives, including the USAF, maintained that they had no evidence of any extraterrestrial visit and that the incident did not indicate a threat to national security. The Ministry of Defense's public position, as reflected in correspondence within released files, was to treat the matter as unexplained but not threatening, and therefore not a priority for further public investigation or disclosure. Those official positions, documented in UK MOD reviews and in statements by US base authorities, did not close the case in the court of public opinion. Instead, they deepened the mystery. If trained security personnel and a base commander filed reports, and if they recorded a patrol and instrument readings, why did no definitive physical trace or corroborating radar record enter the public files? The implications of Rendlesham have been persistent. For military procedures, the incident illustrated how local security events with potentially unusual characteristics are escalated and recorded within NATO operations. For public policy, it showed a defense establishment balancing documented witness reports against a lack of verifiable technical data. The Ministry of Defense repeatedly noted that without proof of a threat, investigating every unexplained sighting was not feasible. For civilian research, Rendlesham became a canonical case. It combined military witnesses, official records, on-the-record memos, and later contested personal testimony that expanded the narrative. The case influenced how witnesses and investigators interpreted subsequent UAP reports and informed calls for more transparent record-keeping and archival release. Today, the strongest unresolved questions remain tightly bound to the documents themselves. Why are there no contemporaneous radar logs publicly available from either UK or US sources that definitively corroborate an extended aerial object in the area at the times reported? What, if any, physical trace remains that can be linked conclusively to the 1980 patrols, beyond witness statements and the security logs? How should a defense organization weigh multiple credible trained witnesses against an absence of independent instrumentation? And how do later expansions of witness testimony, claims made decades after the event, fit into an evidentiary standard based on contemporaneous reporting? Rendlesham also raises procedural questions raised explicitly in the released files. Ministry of Defense correspondence shows officials debated whether to regard the reports as a matter for serious defense interest. Ultimately, the decision to log and then close the case rests on the absence of a demonstrated threat. That choice is documented and remains a subject of debate among historians and UFO researchers. Does the absence of threat equal absence of significance? The Rendlesham Forest incident leaves now as a hybrid of paper trail and oral history. We possess a signed memo from an American deputy base commander, a contemporaneous audio recording of a patrol describing unexplained lights and minor instrument anomalies, security logs noting patrols and reporting, and Ministry of Defense files that show internal handling and a formal assessment. Unexplained, but not a defense threat. We also possess subsequent testimony and books in which several participants expand or reinterpret their experiences decades later. Claims that researchers document as testimony, not as fresh official evidence. In the end, the case closes on no single definitive conclusion. The official records show trained service members encountering phenomena they could not identify and taking the responsible step of reporting through command channels. The released Ministry of Defense documents and U.S. files show why a government might decline to escalate militarily in the absence of corroborating instrumental data. Yet the absence of such corroborating records, radar logs, physical debris, or further technical analysis remains the most striking and frustrating element to investigators on both sides of the debate. And so the final image anchored in the documents is of a recorded voice in the dark, an officer describing something he could not explain, and a file stamped "No defense significance." The Rendlesham Forest case leaves us and the official record with a pressing, open question. What happened in that stand of Suffolk trees on those nights in December 1980 that led trained military personnel to record events they could not identify? And why, in the archive of that response, do the most conclusive forms of corroboration appear to be missing? The files tell us what was reported. They do not tell us what, if anything, was truly there. That, after decades of study and release of official documents, remains unresolved.